Hi everybody and welcome to the next video in this series. In this video we are going to be looking at doing all the typography and the buttons. Normally I would have done this stuff before the header and the hero area that I'd started working on already, but I think it's more fun to sort of see it all come to life with the parts of it already done. Now we can really start bringing in the fonts and making it look a lot better, and it's more, you're watching me do this. I want to make it as visually pleasing as possible for you guys. Now, which order you do it in doesn't really matter, but just to let you know, normally I would have probably done those the other way, but this just seemed to make more sense. Enough of me rambling around, let's get started and actually start putting all of this together now. So I mentioned we're focusing on mobile first, so the typography might have some changes to it later on once I start working on the larger size, but for now, what I'm going to do is make a new file. I'm going to save this in my base, and I'm going to call this one type. I'm going to call it type just because I already have a typography file and I don't really want to mix those up. They probably should be the other way around. Well, type. Save that. Go to my main.sass and I want to import that. Import base / type. So let's go over there. I'm not going to be working on the header or the hero, so I can close those. I might be jumping in here a little bit. I'm not sure yet. So for the type, I already have the body style set up. I did that way back. Actually, I did that off video, but I did mention it a little while ago. So we go to the vendor and normalize. Right at the top is where they set up their fonts. So I set up a little mix-in for my fonts, and I use that to set up for just rubato that we're going to be using, and a basic line height. So that part of it's already been done, but we definitely have some other stuff that we need to change here. So I'm going to close that down. So one thing I'm going to do is I always like sort of doing a bit of a reset on my margins and everything because they're always kind of awkward. So let's just do H2, H3, H4, H5, H6. I don't think I'm actually going to use all of those, but whoops, I don't need those. And what I want to do is just do a margin. I want 0 on the top, 0 on the left and right, and something like 0.75 em is usually a nice little default that I go with. Not having any on the top does make my life a lot easier. So I'm sort of doing a reset on that. And then at the same time, what I like doing is having my H1 last child. And I'm going to copy this. 2, 3, 4. Whoops. 4, 5, 6. I think I need 7 of them because of that paragraph. So I have an H2, my H3, my H4, my H5, 5, my H6, and my paragraph. And what I like doing with this is I like saying that their margin is 0. So we don't actually see a big change or any change come up right away on that. But what this is doing is it's saying that if I have, say, 5 paragraphs in a row, the last paragraph, it's not going to have any margin bottom on it. Or if I have an H1 and it's always, if it's the last child, that it will not have any margin on the bottom of it. And for me, that's important. And the reason I like last child and not last of type, if we look here at this H1, just for fun, if I did last, because people mix up last child and last of type sometimes. Last of type. So if I do last of type and I only have one H1, well, that means that there's no margin on that. But I want this to have a margin. So it's only going to look at it if it's the last child in something. So here, this paragraph, it's not the last child, so it's keeping a margin on the bottom, which is important. Whereas if we come down to these ones here, just if I do an inspect over here, this paragraph has it, and then this oh, it's not the last child again. Do we have a paragraph somewhere that is a last child? My call to action, no, they're all ending with buttons. Sales points should. Here, but I don't have any text in it. Great, I didn't do my text. But it's just to say, you can see the image. I have my H2. You can see that there is a margin on the bottom, and then my paragraph has no margin on it. If we go and look at the box model, there's no margin on that paragraph. So it's just to stop some strange spacing things from showing up and getting extra spacing. Whoops, I didn't want to close that. So I find this just is a nice little tip or trick or whatever you want to call it that might make your lives a little bit better down the road. Okay, so now I do want to get into styling things a little bit more. Now, one thing with the design, this heading was bigger than the rest of it. So this, I have all of these, including this one here, and including this one here is H1s, but this H1 and this one have a special class on it to make them bigger than everything else. So this is sort of the standard H1. The other thing, we'll see. Yeah, so that's my standard H1 anyway, will look like that. So I'm going to look at this one to set it up. So my I'm having this weird delay going on today here. H1, I want my font size, we'll stick with something like 2M. We'll try 2rem, I should say, which shouldn't really change it. The line height is definitely way off, which is normal because it's a larger font size. We'll attack that in a second. Font size is okay. Font weight should be 300. We want it to be light, or what am I doing? It should be font. Super. And again, that's something that I set up when, let's go look at it in my type. Oh, I thought I called that typography, but I only called it type. So I have 2 type files. Whoops. I was sure I'd called that one typography. Okay, I should have called this one typography then. I said I was going to be more organized in this, and I wanted to call that one typography, and I sort of screwed it up. We'll fix it now. Save as typography. Save. We will look inside my base here. Type can be deleted. And last but not least, we need to come into my main.sass and just update that so it's importing the right file. Typography. That makes more sense. I'm happy I didn't screw that up actually. Okay, so super duper, that's all looking fine. So in my, whoops, I just closed it. In my type, I have my font light, font normal, font bold, and font black are all set up for my weights there. So I can just use font light for my font's weight. There we go. And I definitely need to change the line height. Line height, well, what if we do like a 1? It's probably gonna be a bit too close. 1.15. That looks okay. I know it looks really messy down here right now. It's all going to get fixed up in due course, but that looks okay. So this one here, though, obviously needs to look a little bit different. If we go and we look at the original design, that font size is a lot bigger. And I don't have a mobile one. This is the only thing I have, but the font size is, this is small. This one's a lot bigger. So that one, header text, I think. Your title large. So title large. Dot title large. Font size, we'll go with 3rem for now because it should be bigger. Good, good, good. Font weight is going to be font bold. Let's do even font black. And the span will be font weight of font light. There we go. That's what I was after. Is all of them all caps actually? All of them are all caps. So we need a, whoops, not that. We need a text transform of uppercase. Let's just make that. Just want to make sure that looks okay. That's not too bad. Should next level always be on the same line? No. That should be fine. Maybe. Should this be a display block? No, because that's going to look weird. At some of the breakpoints, that's just going to be super strange. So we're not going to do that. We're going to leave that as it was. Cool. Okay, good. So take your app to the next level. This font size here too is a little bit small. Paragraphs should be font size 1.2 rem. Oh wait, no, that one's, again, that one's different, right? Yeah, that one's bigger than all the other text. Whoops, I think I also gave that its own class, right? Text intro, cool. I don't usually have so much time between the projects. I'm usually sort of powering away at them. Text intro, and we'll bring that down. Cut. Paste. Okay. Cool. I'm actually gonna go back to my base for a second. I put this at 95. I think I'm gonna do 90. Yeah, I like that better. Just a little bit more space on the sides. It was getting really tight on the edges there. Now it's just a question of those buttons looking a little bit better. Those buttons do look kind of ugly. So for the buttons, as you might guess, they get their own Sass file. And in this case, it's going to go in the components. Oh, I did a save as. Whoops. New. Save. There we go. Sass components buttons.sass. So if you haven't used Sass before, you're probably seeing a little bit of, whoa, I'm doing a screenshot. You've probably seen a little bit of the cool power of it right now, right? Where you can do a lot of these really nice things where just organizing your Sass or your CSS becomes easier because you're not scrolling through this big giant file. You're just picking out the little pieces you want. So for our buttons, there's a few different things we want to do, right? Our buttons had, what did our buttons have? Our buttons have a few different classes that we played around with. So we had our basic button class where I use this to set up the padding all the time. 0.7M, 2.5M. I always go with a lot more padding. Oops, and to get that padding to work properly, I do need to also do a display inline block. Are these not buttons? I did it again. I didn't import it. So come up to here. Again, this wouldn't normally happen if you were doing Sass through the command line. One of the problems with pre-pros is this. But you would also have to import it properly. Components at import components / buttons. There we go. My buttons are working properly now. Sweet. Buttons. So, and they're not always, they can go next to each other. They just look kind of weird now because the padding is so big, but they don't have a background on them. But that's okay. Another thing I usually like to do is text transform uppercase for my buttons. Actually, since I'm doing this, a nice thing you can do, text transform and text decoration none. So it's a cool thing you can do with Sass, again with the indenting. I have my text, and then it's a text transform and a text decoration. So a nice little trick there if you didn't know about that. I I think that's all I need. Okay, so now we have our different buttons. So we had the button primary. So the background on this will be my accent color. Let's see that click in. Is one of those not the primary, secondary primary? BTN modifier classes get the double. There we go. And I want a color of, whoops, text inverse. I have my button secondary, which will have a background of, no, not a background. We'll have a border of 2 pixels solid white. No, text inverse. The main reason I'm doing this for my button is the color will be the same as the border, and that way if I ever change the text inverse color, it will also change the border color at the same time. Color is text inverse. Don't forget the $sign for the variable. Awesome possum. Because this is set up with a border and this one's not using a border, it actually sticks out a little bit. So one way to not have that stick out a little bit is just to put a border of 2 pixels solid accent. And then that should make them exactly the same size. Coolio. Is there anything else I need to do on those? They look okay, except they're stuck together, which is obviously really ugly. Like this, they're okay. But so I'm happy actually with what they look like now. I'm going to put a hover effect on them. But they look nice, but now they're stuck together. So I can prevent that from happening actually. And another little thing we can do. So it's a button. I want to do button not last of type. Margin bottom 1em. Too much. 0.6em. That looks better. So I'm saying this is just taking button. So button, not the last button. If I have a lot of buttons, not the last button will get a margin on it. All the other buttons will get a margin on the bottom, so I can separate my buttons. Will that cause? No, it won't cause any problems, I don't think. Super. So that looks good, that looks good. Let's give these a hover effect. So my button primary, which is this one here, we'll give that one, so, and hover. And focus. We will give it a background of darken. We will darken my accent color by how much? 15%. So you can see it there clicking in. It's getting darker when I go on top. I'm tabbing through right now, and you can see it gets darker. This is something you can do with Sass, which is super handy and nice and makes life a lot easier. So we'll stick with that. And I'm actually, no, the secondary one is different. So here we want to do and hover and focus. We will do a background of text inverse as maybe I think I should have done white. Anyway, text inverse, and the color will have to change to, we'll go with primary, text primary, text primary. Did I not call it text primary? Type usually, oh, colors, whoops. Oh, I did text main. I keep screwing that up today. Text. I used to, whoops, sorry. Where are we? Buttons. I used to always use primary, and I've been using main lately, but I'm not used to the change yet. There we go. Okay, super. So that's working and it's looking good. And that section's pretty much done. We do need to change some colors. My text color should be that blue. Actually, I'm using text inverse more than I'm using anything else, but ideally that blue color would be my default color. So on my base, let's come up and just say body color is text per main. Whoops, and I made a mistake on my colors. Main, normalize button, step over colors. My text main should be my main color. Ah, there we go. That's better. Good. So that's looking nice. I'm happy that I'm trying to see, oh, my H2s need to be fixed up. I didn't do a lot of type stuff on these. For now, we'll just worry about the H2. And I think that will be it for this video. Cool. So let's go and check out what do my H2s look like. They're all caps, they're bold. Let's zoom in a little bit on that. My H2s, they're all caps, they're bold. I have some letter spacing on them. And they're not super gigantic. Okay, cool. They're actually pretty small. So for that, we will come to here. H2. Font size will be something like 1.2 rem maybe. The text transform is uppercase. My letter spacing will be something like 1.5 pixels. Line height will be something like 1. Just so you know, if ever you're doing stuff with all cap text, your all cap text line height should be a lot smaller. You can almost always just set it to like 1. If you're getting to really big font sizes, it's actually going to go smaller than 1. Because all caps don't have like uppercase or little like J's and G's and Q's that go down underneath, you can really pull those a lot closer together. If not, they look weird. They look like they're too far apart. Let's just make this even like 2 for my letter spacing on that. Yeah. Cool. I only have that one. Luckily, I'd actually set it up because I have others that should be over here that I didn't get around to doing. So that looks pretty good. I think that's it for the typography, guys. And thank you so much for watching this far into the video. I hope you liked it. If you did like it, hit the little thumbs up so I know you did. If you haven't already subscribed so you don't miss any other videos in this series or whatever comes after this series. And thanks again for watching. Take it easy.